You know, this world that we live in, it absolutely baffles me how people can look at these rioters and these quote unquote protesters and say that these protesters are defending themselves. Defending themselves, what's the courthouse going to do? Pick up and move? The courthouse is immobile, and the federal officers inside defending the courthouse are inside the courthouse. So you are not defending, you are the aggressors. But let's read this from Daily Mail. It looks like downtown Baghdad. Feds protecting Portland's courthouse fear for their lives after 61 nights of unrest. But protesters say they're just fighting back, protect themselves as DOJ shares photos of confiscated Molotov cocktails. You're fighting back to protect yourself. You are the aggressors. You keep going up to the federal courthouse. The federal courthouse is not moving and attacking you. You are attacking the federal courthouse. It was described like a medieval siege, for crying out loud. Federal officers who are protecting Portland's courthouse under the orders of Trump administration have revealed that they fear for their lives after 61 nights of protests in the city. But demonstrators say they are fighting back to protect themselves from the agents. You keep going to the courthouse and throwing bombs in the courthouse. Those commercial grade fireworks that you idiots are throwing at the courthouse, they're bombs. You have already almost blown one federal officer's leg off. He is in the hospital in stable condition. You have blinded 4 federal officers permanently with lasers. You are throwing Molotov cocktails. Come on now. You are the aggressors. You are the terrorists. President Donald Trump sent federal agents to Portland earlier this month and has since said he would be sending 100 more troops in the city to protect federal property. And he has every right to. Just as you have a right to defend your property, they have a right to defend their property. If you don't want them to have a right to defend their property, then you cannot have a right to defend your own property. We don't have rules for thee and not for me. It's not the way it's supposed to work. Now, if you owned a house and a bunch of protesters were attacking your house and throwing Molotov cocktails at your house and bombs at your house and injuring your family members and your friends who are in your house, you would want them labeled as attackers and you would want to be able to defend your house. Now imagine they repeatedly, wave after wave after wave for over 2 months, attack your house and injure your people and have the entire world calling them peaceful protesters and attacking you. How would you feel? The courthouse cannot get up and move. They are defending the courthouse. Why are they defending the courthouse? Because you idiots keep attacking it. And as you're attacking it, claiming that you're being attacked, you are not being attacked. You are the aggressors. You are the ones who are attacking, not the feds. You. Demonstrators. Rioters. Rioters. They're not demonstrators. What are they demonstrating? Demonstrating how to be violent? Demonstrating how common sense has gone out the road? Okay, I guess in that sense they're demonstrators. Have taken to the streets to demand justice for black men and women who have died at the hands of police officers across the U.S., including George Floyd, who took his last breath under the knee of a white Minneapolis police officer on May 25th. Yeah. 9 to 13. 9 to 13 unarmed black people were killed by officers last year. And for that, we are doing what? We've already had 23 shootings and 23 deaths from the left, on the left, and it's the left that is being violent. Finally, the right is starting to defend themselves a little bit. But even when the right defends themselves after being shot at, the left still calls them attackers. No! Put your head out of your ass. And while many protests have been peaceful, some have turned violent for both officers and protesters. Okay. It's scary. You open the doors out. You open those doors out when the crowd is shaking the fence, and on the other side of that fence are people that want to kill you because of the job we chose to do and what we represent, said a deputy U.S. Marshal who has been protecting the Mark O. Hatfield federal courthouse for weeks. He requested anonymity because protesters have identified him and posted his personal information online. Yeah, that's how you show your cause. You dox somebody and his family and things like that. Come on now. If anything happens to this man or his family, those individuals who doxed him are fully 100% responsible. And you guys claim that you are defending? No, you are the aggressors. You're the aggressors. You're the terrorists. You're the violent ones. I can't walk outside without being in fear for my life, he said. I'm worried for my life every time I walk outside of the building. The agent then said that downtown Portland has started to look a lot like downtown Baghdad. Yeah. I finally get outside at 7 a.m. after being in the building since 3 p.m. the day prior. And I look east and I'm like, oh, the world's normal over there, and people are driving to work, and the city is clean and functioning, the deputy U.S. Marshal said. I look out on the street, and it looks like downtown Baghdad. Yeah. Yeah. Look at this image. This is what you guys are causing. You, the protesters, are causing this. If you wouldn't attack the courthouse, they wouldn't be there. I mean, Jesus. What are you doing? Look at this. This is absurd. This is absurd. You guys are using commercial grade fireworks. Those are dangerous. Those are bombs. A lot of those are like 2 sticks of dynamite. Absurdity. And they're using the same tactics that they use in the Middle East when a bomb would go off and they would have people run in and pretend to be hit in order for views and clicks. That's exactly what they're doing. Those mothers that were linking arms, supposedly protecting protesters from police. No. First, they weren't mothers. A lot of it was confirmed that they weren't. 2, it was all a photo op. And every single one of you fell for it. Every single one of you looked at it and said, oh, those protesters. Common sense, people. There's 2 sides to every story, and you're only looking at one. Federal property has been increasingly targeted as the city's protests against racial injustice march on. They're not protests against racial injustice. They're looting and rioting and shooting. What are you protesting? Peace? Are you protesting against peace? Because that's what it seems like. You're violent. You're burning down buildings. There was an immigrant from, where was it? God, I don't remember. There was an immigrant, a black immigrant. They burned down his building and destroyed all his tools and made it irreparable. He could not go back to work. They destroyed his tools. This is what you're protesting? You say that you protest against harming black lives, but in the same breath burn down a black man's building and his tools, harming him and his family. What are you doing? That's crazy. That's absurd. You're nuts. You're out of your mind. Protesting is fine, but there's a way to protest. Violence is not it. Within the past few days, federal agents have seen as many as 4,000 people on a single night, the largest total so far. Imagine that. You're a group of what? Maybe 100. Federal agents barricaded inside a building. They're throwing Molotov cocktails, commercial-grade fireworks, frozen bottles of bleach or water or whatever it is, and God knows what else. And you know out there they've got live ammunition. You know in that crowd somebody does. And the whole world is saying that you're the evil one when you're the one being attacked. Not me. I call it as it is. I call it as I see it, and I call it as it is. The courthouse, a stately building with large windows and a white marble interior, who cares, looked like a feudal castle under siege. The outside was boarded up with thick plywood. Narrow slits at the top of the plywood, accessed by a mechanized scaffolding, gave the agents inside a view of the crowd and an opening through which to fire pepper balls. The terrace outside the front door was littered with garbage, the steps leading to the courthouse splattered with paint. A mixture of anti-police and Black Lives Matter graffiti covered the building's outer walls and columns to a height of about 10 feet. Tear gas from the previous night's protests still hung in the air and coated the floor with a slime that had been hurriedly mopped up by custodians earlier that day. The protesters, the men inside the courthouse, are the best thoughtless political minions at worst. To the protesters, God, I am flubbing it up. To the protesters, The men inside the courthouse are at best thoughtless political minions, at worst murderous henchmen. Yeah. Get that attitude out of your head, man. Get that attitude out of your head. You are the ones who are attacking them. You are doing exactly what you are accusing them of. You are attacking them relentlessly with deadly weapons. Mark my words. Those explosives that they're throwing in are deadly. So congratulations, protesters. You have become the very evil that you believe you are fighting against. At 10:15 Monday night, a man tried to climb the fence outside the courthouse and was quickly arrested. 30 minutes later, the fence rocked and leaned sharply as dozens of protesters pressed their weight against it, some of them throwing their bodies against it at a running start. Yeah. They are literally trying to get to these federal agents. They are literally trying to get to them. And this right here, this photo op, look, they've all got their hands up because the camera's out. How much you want to bet 10 minutes ago, before the camera's out, and none of them had their hands up? There's a shield there. I bet you he didn't have his hand up. They were violent. As soon as the cameras come out, they act non-violent. It's all propaganda. All propaganda, and y'all are falling for it hook, line, and sinker. Because somehow Americans have lost the ability to look at things objectively and look at both sides and say, well, this side is saying that, but that doesn't quite make sense. Let's see what the other side says. The other side says this, and form their own opinion. No. Y'all a bunch of sheeple, bunch of sheep being led to slaughter. Grow up, America. Get your head out of your goddamn ass. Welcome to planet Earth, where things happen in reality and things aren't always just one way. Do your own research. Look into it yourself. It's kind of like that thing everybody believes. All those cops, the federal agents, were unmarked and they didn't have badge numbers when the very photo showed them with badge numbers and police on their backs. Yes, the cars were unmarked, but that's every fucking city in the United States has unmarked police officers. Pull your head out of your ass. I love you guys. See you on the next one.